Famously known for his yogiisms, Lawrence Peter Berra is widely regarded as one of the greatest catchers to ever play the game, earning him a place in baseball and American folklore. Born in 1925, Berra grew up on the Hill, St. Louis Italian-American neighborhood, across the street from lifelong friend Joe Garagiola. Berra was signed by the New York Yankees for $500 in 1942 and quickly impressed, driving in 23 runs during a minor league doubleheader. But his playing career was temporarily put on hold while he served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Berra would make his major league debut for the Yankees in 1946. 2 seasons later, Berra began a remarkable run of 17 consecutive All-Star Game appearances. His career accomplishments are legendary, playing in 14 World Series, winning a record 10 titles as a player, both of which are records. He was named American League Most Valuable Player 3 times and was on the receiving end of 2 of the most iconic plays in baseball history. Jackie Robinson's steal of home in 1955.
Now, he was out. That's all I can say, out. I still say it. Nobody ever brings it. I'd say right away, out.
And Don Larson's perfect game in the 1956 World Series.
Anything I put down, he never shook me off once. He got everything over, what I called for.
Berra's managerial career is remembered mostly for his unceremonious firings, but he finished with a winning record in nearly 1,000 combined games with the Yankees and Mets. His 64 Yankees and 73 Mets each lost Game 7 of the World Series. While his playing career with the New York Yankees earned him induction to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972, Berra's earnestness and indelible yogiisms are the reasons a 5'7" catcher became such an outsized symbol of Americana.
Baseball in New York today as the Yankees and Mets remember the great Yogi Berra, who passed away today at the ripe old age of 90 years of age. Joe Simpson, Chip Carey, welcome to Citi Field in New York, where we celebrate the life of a man born on the Hill in St. Louis, Missouri, and reached the summit of baseball immortality. 10 world championships and, of course, a Hall of Fame career. Your memories of Yogi Berra?
Well, you didn't have to be a New Yorker to be a Yogi Berra fan. He was an inspiration to a lot of people, a guy who accomplished so much in the game, and he was 5'7", 5'8" tops. So Yogi was an inspiration to a lot of people, and certainly provided a lot of entertainment to people too with his various malaprops.
Yeah, but a great career as well. 2,150 major league hits, 358 big league homers, and for a life that came full circle, Yogi Berra's big league debut 69 years ago today, and he passed away at 90 today as well. Another perfect night for baseball in the Big Apple. Our final visit with the New York Mets here at Citi Field in Flushing, New York, with Joe Simpson and Andre Aldridge. Chip Carey welcoming you back to the ballpark, where the Braves have a chance to take 2 out of 3 from the first place Mets. And a good pitching matchup tonight, Joe. Williams Perez back on the right side of things of late against Bartolo Colon, who the Braves haven't solved yet this year.
Right you are. Williams Perez last 3 starts has been very good. Finally settled in after being on the disabled list, where he struggled coming off the DL, but he's pitched quite a bit better, as you see, over his last 3 starts. Braves have not beaten Colon. He's due for a beating tonight. He's coming off a loss to the Miami Marlins his last time out, so maybe the Braves can make it 2 in a row over the Mets and make it 5 of their last 6.
He's been smiling way too much against the Atlanta Braves. Always a treat to watch Bartolo Colon do things like that on the diamond. We'll see what he has in store for us tonight after a break. On the roof of Citi Field here in Flushing, New York. Perfect night for a ball game. Braves in Citi Field trying to take 2 out of 3 from the first place Mets. Here's your Academy Sports and Outdoors starting lineup. Nick Markakis will lead off. Hector Olivera homered here last night. A big blow in Game 2 of the series. Nick Swisher, you'll see him wearing number 8 on his baseball cap in honor of the late great Yogi Berra, who passed away earlier today. Pierzynski, Simmons, Peterson, Maben, Bourne, and Williams Perez face the ageless wonder Bartolo Colon for New York.
42 years old, 5'11", 285 out of the Dominican. Lives in New Jersey now, though, and his work against the National League East has been quite amazing this year. Against the East, 15 starts, 13-2, and a 2.65 ERA. 4 of those wins, as you know, have come against Atlanta in 4 starts with a 3.51 ERA. Just 3 walks issued to Atlanta in those 4 starts.
Is Mets defense behind it? Well, Terry Collins may be starting to go to the whip just a little bit. A couple of weeks left in the season. Most of his regular players are in the lineup tonight, with the exception of Wilmer Flores. Tonight, Ruben Tejada gets the start at shortstop. Everybody else might be who the Mets play in Game 1 of the playoffs, should they get there. The Mets begin play tonight, 6.5 games in front of the Washington Nationals. And talk around town, Joe, is, are the Mets playing tight right now?
I don't see any signs of that. The manager said something about that yesterday. He was quoted as saying such in the paper. David Wright said, no, we're not playing tight. We just happened to play a team last night that played better than we did.
And the Braves aren't playing good ball right now. They've won 4 of 5. The Mets have lost 5 of 7. We'll see what happens in the rubber match tonight. And we are underway. A 70-degree night in New York. And Markakis takes off the plate. 1 ball, 1 strike. Nick singled, walked, and scored last night. And that It's fouled back to the screen. 1-2.
85% fastballs from Colon. He'll cut it, he'll sink it, he'll change speeds off of it. He's certainly got a straight change, but he'll throw 191 and then he'll throw 189 and then 88 and then back to 91. Nothing's ever the same on 2 consecutive pitches. He also has a slider.
And that's grounded towards short softly. Tejada's got it, and Markakis is out number 1. You know what's coming, but so often can't hit it. With Bartolo Colon on the hill, he's trying to track down win number 15 tonight. Hector Olivera is the second hitter for the Braves. Boy, he launched a long homer here last night. Freddie Gonzalez was marveling at the power with his second big league homer for the Braves. A 3-run shot that broke the game open against Logan Verrett. 2.
I think he was estimated at about 430 feet. Crushed it.
To third, David Wright. Right at the bag. 2 out. And here's Nick Swisher. Nick getting the start at first base for Freddie Freeman tonight.
Freddie's banged up. His wrist still not 100%. Kind of fell on it last night on a hard ground ball hit to him. Same right wrist that put him on the disabled list earlier this year. Talked to him before the game. He said it's really been bothering him for the last 2 weeks. Been trying to play through it.
So smart move for Freddie Gonzalez. Give him tonight off. Scheduled day off for the ball club in Miami tomorrow. Maybe he'll be ready to go Friday night against the Marlins. Broken back. Roller out to second. That will take care of Nick Swisher. 3 ground ball outs for Bartolo Colon in a perfect top of the first. Passed away today at the age of 90. Remarkable man. Williams Perez goes to work for the Braves in the bottom of the first.
For Williams Perez, his 19th start. He evened his record at 6-6 with his last start. A win against Philadelphia when he pitched into the 6th inning and gave up only 1 run. 4 September starts, good numbers. A good bounce back after a rough return from the disabled list. Only 5 walks in those 23 innings. Time for his Ford keys to pitching success tonight, with a little hint of what happened today. Nobody goes there anymore. That's because nobody pitches inside much anymore, and he needs to pitch inside to be successful and use his changeup and breaking ball. And deja vu all over again. Well, all he needed to do was watch what Matt Whistler did last night, learn something from that, and enjoy a little deja vu all over again tonight.
Yeah, Matt was brilliant in Game 2. We'll have a few of the witticisms of Yogi Berra as the night goes on, as Curtis Granderson leads off. That first one of my favorites. He was asked about a restaurant. He said it's too crowded.
Yeah, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
He was a beauty. And who would have thought? Two best friends, Joe Garagiola and Yogi Berra, grew up in the same neighborhood, lifelong friends in St. Louis, would achieve the fame that they had in our sport. What a story.
I know you know where they live.
The Hill.
They're on the Hill in St. Louis, and I was there when I went to see it when we were there in St. Louis the first time this year, the only time this year. And they've got a memorial, well, not a memorial, but they had a plaque in the sidewalk noting his house and Joe's house.
Strike 3. Granderson pumped out by Perez. Good start for Williams tonight. 1 up, 1 down.
And what was amusing to me was there's a park nearby, a sandlot, and it's Berra Park. And there's a bust of a man there. So when we got through doing some work there, I went over to read the bust, thought it was Yogi. Not so. Wasn't even Yogi's dad. It was like his uncle.
Really?
Yeah, so there was more than just one group of Berras on the Hill.
Oh, so he's not even the most famous Berra in his hometown.
Right.
Wow, that's a great story. I didn't know that. It's David Wright bats and takes a strike.
We were talking to Yogi's niece, and I asked about the park because it was called Berra Park. She said, oh, no, he and Joe didn't play there. They went over to another park a couple of blocks away. They never played at Berra Park.
Broken bat. Jason played that on a hop. And Perez gets it right easily. 2 up, 2 down.
That pitch looked inside.
And here's the Mets lineup for Terry Collins. New York 12-8 this month. And 85 wins so far. Daniel Murphy is hitting third. Cespedes fourth. Duda, Darno, Conforto, Tejada, and Bartolo Colon. Mets got some help from Baltimore last night. They're getting help from them tonight as they're playing the Nationals again. But it's getting to the point where the Mets need to take care of their own business. Finish up the series with the Braves. They have a long road trip coming up. They'll next play against the Reds in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Work them.
That ball had plenty of movement on it. Murphy couldn't stop his swing. 0-2.
If he strikes Murphy out, you know he's got something working tonight.
One of the toughest guys to strike out in the league. This is Andrelton Simmons, the 0-2. Driven toward right. Markakis on the run. Still going. That ball is gone. On an 0-2 pitch. Murphy sneaks it over the wall in right center, and the Mets have jumped in front.
Nobody goes there anymore. Well, if you saw what A.J. did, A.J. tried to get him to come in. Watch this sign. Fastball in. He shook him off. Fastball away. Adios. Came right to the middle of the plate.
Murphy's 13th homer came on an 0-2 pitch, and the Mets lead. Here's Cespedes.
A.J. had the right idea. He didn't follow the lead.
14th homer for the Mets in their last 12 home games, and Perez has had first inning trouble again. 1 ball, 1 strike. Cespedes has cooled off a bit since the Braves saw him back in Atlanta. He He's 7 for his last 27 and has scored 2 runs in that stretch. Back to the mound, and Williams makes the play, and the flip to first is in plenty of time. Daniel Murphy, with the Mets down to their last strike in the first inning, strikes first, a homer to right center, puts New York in front 1-0 behind Bartolo Colon. One nothing, and A.J. Pierzynski leads off the Braves second. A.J. closing in on 2,000 hits. He's 19 away. He's got 3 hits in this series. This one popped up to shallow left. Conforto comes in, and Michael makes the play. There's the first out. So 3 ground ball outs for Colon, 1 fly out now, and that brings up Andrelton Simmons.
There are some guys in the Braves lineup with good numbers against Colon. Swisher's 1. AJ has a ton of at bats against him and a .270 career average against him. And Andrelton Simmons wears him out. 11 for 20.
Well, he's worn out the entire Mets staff this year. Andrelton with 28 hits this year against the Mets. That ties him with Felipe Alou for the most in a single season as a Brave in the Atlanta portion of team history. Rico Carty had 29 hits in a season against the Mets. It was in 1964. And David Wright. Makes a nice play. Poor throw, but Duda came off the bag. No trouble. 5 up, 5 down for Colon.
Yeah, David's never really been one of those guys that got on top when he threw the ball. He kind of slings it over there and throws a sinker. And that one pulled Duda off the bag.
So our Georgia Lottery hitting the jackpot persona is Jace Peterson tonight.
Hit a home run here last night. Got the Braves offense kick-started. 2 homers, 9 RBIs in his last 10 games against New York. Good numbers.
Strike. A the middle. Murphy to his right. Backhands. Throws. Got it. 5 ground outs among the first 6 outs for Bartolo Colon. 1-0 New York. The Atlanta defense tonight. Bourne, Maven, and Markakis left to right in the outfield. Nick Swisher in for Freddie Freeman. Joe mentioned why earlier. Oliveira, Simmons, and Peterson joined him on the infield defense, and AJ's back in harness with Williams Perez. An 0-2 homer by Daniel Murphy has given the Mets an early lead. Here's Lucas Duda to lead things off. September hasn't been kind to Lucas Duda. He's hitting a .154 this month. 6 hits and 39 at bats, 1 homer. Still trying to get back into the swing of things, if you pardon the pun, after some DL time with a bad back.
Boy, was he way out in front of that one. Williams Perez last start came against the Phillies at home. He beat them 2-1, and the 1 run he gave up was on a 2-out home run by Cameron Rupp to right field. That's the only run he allowed. Give up a few other hits. Maybe he can pitch around that home run tonight and get some run support.
Couldn't flag it down, or is that Oliveira? Now Duda's going to try to go to second, and he's going to make it. Yep, it's Oliveira who's out there in the shift, and he couldn't flag it down, and Duda never stopped running.
Well, Oliveira did. I mean, he got leather on it, and then he stood there and watched Nick Markakis come in from right field to go get it on a ball that was about 20 feet from Oliveira. He doesn't go to second if Oliveira gets to his feet and goes to get it. Huh.
31st double for Duda. And that'll bring up d'Arnaud. 2 Mets hits, both for extra bases. Here's another man Terry Collins would like to see break out. d'Arnaud's 0 for his last 16. And a strike. Right back where it came from into center field. Duda on his way to third will be stopped. First and third with nobody out. That ball was rocketed. And the first hit for d'Arnaud in his last 17 at bats. And the Mets have a chance for a big inning.
That sizzled right by Williams Perez's foot. It got hit in Pittsburgh. And he's trying to get it out of the way. He did. Right by his left foot. Good job by Maben to charge and hold Duda at third.
Michael Conforto is the batter. 2 hits in the series, including a homer. That came in the second inning in game 1 on Monday night. And this one's popped up. Oliveira in. Fairground makes the catch. Conforto pops up on the first pitch. That helps.
Sure does.
You're a ground ball away from getting out of the inning.
Especially the way Conforto is hit against the Braves. Manny Gonzalez backpedaling to get out of the way for Oliveira.
Thought Manny did a nice job behind the plate last night.
Yeah, he did. Paul Schreiber's a good home plate umpire too, working tonight.
.27 RBIs for Tejada and a .264 mark. He's 1 for 3 against Perez. That's right there, even count.
He showed a good sinker in the first inning. There's the pitcher on deck. Try to get a ground ball or even a strikeout before you get to Colon, who's having a career year with the bat.
Now Bartolo with 8 hits and 4 RBIs this year. Line drive, base hit. It's 2-0 New York. d'Arnaud around second, on his way to third. Another 2-strike hit allowed by Williams Perez. Tejada drives home his 28th man.
Sinker that started out just like Murphy's in a way. Started off the plate, came right back to the middle. Maybe started on the outer third. But none of that works if you don't pitch inside once in a while. If you make him aware of something inside, then maybe he's not as prone to go out there and nail that pitch that you wanted to work away.
So here's Bartolo, first and third, 1 out. Oliveira creeps in and stays close to the Mets runner at third base in case Colon lays down a bunt.
Opponents with 2 strikes against Perez before that at bat were hitting .230 with 5 homers off of Perez, and it includes that 2-strike homer by Murphy tonight. That's a real high average with 2 strikes. On 0-2 counts, they're hitting .243.
And we've seen that from Williams Perez, from Matt Whistler, from Mike Fultonevich at times. They'll get to 2 strikes, have not yet learned how to finish off hitters on a consistent basis. Colon stabbed at that one and didn't get it. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Braves kind of had that sniffed out. Colon may have been just trying to bunt the runner at first over. No sign of a squeeze.
He got the bunt down. Tejada is going to go to second. Perez will apply the tag. A one unassisted sacrifice, and Colon gets a nice ovation as he makes his way to the Mets dugout.
Fourth sacrifice for him to go with a sacrifice fly. He's been hit by a pitch. He's got a double.
And now the lineup card turns to Curtis Granderson. Ball one. Williams caught him looking in the first inning. This man's been a tough out for the Braves. They've walked him a lot. He's gotten his share of hits. He scored 15 runs so far this month alone. And 91 for the season. This one's popped up. Markakis, Peterson, Jace takes a peek and makes the catch over his left shoulder, and that will retire the side. A run on 3 hits. The Braves couldn't handle a hot shot off the bat of Lucas Duda, and the Mets lead by 2.
Oliveira didn't. Yeah, that's kind of the case here. Here's that ball that Duda scorched, and then look, it didn't roll. I mean, it rolled a ways away from him, but Nick Markakis had to take about 20 steps or so to come get the ball while Oliveira rooted him on. I don't understand that. I don't know what goes through your mind when a ball goes off your glove to not want to go get it.
Yeah, it took about 6 seconds by the time the ball ticked off his glove for Markakis to pick it up and throw it into second.
Plenty of time for Duda to take the extra base.
And that led to the second New York run. Tejada brought him home with a 1-out single. Now Maben leads off for the Braves in the third, and Colon gets ahead of him with a strike. Cameron has 3 hits since September 13th. He came back from his eye problems. And that one's bounced towards short. Tejada's got it. Good release. Good play. 7 up, 7 down.
I'll tell you this about Cameron, though. He did not start last night. He came into pinch run, but before the game, on top of whatever hitting they got on the field, he was in the cage early, working with Jose Castro and trying to get that swing back.
Bartolo Colon wearing a most appropriate number tonight. He is 4-0 against the Braves this year. The only Mets to beat the Braves 4 times in one season are Bartolo Colon, Oliver Perez, and Tom Seaver.
And he's got a chance to go 5-0.
The only Met to ever do that against the Braves is a man who should have been a Brave, Tom Seaver. He beat the Braves 6 times from late July to early August 1968 through 69.
So Seaver's was over a 2-year stretch?
Correct.
Okay.
There have been only 4 pitchers who've earned 5 wins against Atlanta in one season. None of them are Mets. Eric Schau and Oral Hershiser. Don Sutton. And Colon bidding for it tonight. Line drive is handled at short. Throw to first in time. Bourne's retired. 2 out. Thought for a moment he caught that in the air. Couldn't tell from our vantage point, but he made the throw anyway.
I went back and looked at his last start against the Braves, and he worked 6 2/3 innings. The Braves didn't get any runs off of him until the 7th, but he only had like 4 ground ball outs that whole game. He's on fire tonight.
Well, you called it. He's done this not just to the Braves, but the entire division. Colon an amazing 13-2 against the East this year. A strike to Perez, 0-1.
Puts it where he wants it.
Swing and a miss. 9 up, 9 down for Bartolo Colon. He's got 9 outs on 26 pitches, and he leads 2-0. Through 9 outs, 26 pitches. He leads 2-0. And he's our AT&T U-verse trivia question tonight. He has 8 career wins against the Braves. What Met pitcher has the most career wins against Atlanta?
Would that be an active pitcher or in history?
It is not an active pitcher. It is in history.
Okay.
I'm going to say Tom Seaver.
Yeah, it'd be hard to go against him, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Man who was drafted by the Braves, but due to technicality was not allowed to remain with the Braves.
I've got another guy in mind.
Yeah.
Al Leiter.
Dwight Gooden. I mean, they've had some unbelievable pitchers in this Mets history.
Divisional play.
Hope Tom Seaver's doing well. He's watching the game tonight. What a gentleman. Great ambassador for the game. Hall of Famer.
A pretty good winemaker, too.
Yeah. As David Wright leads off for New York in the third. He grounded out to second his first time up. Big swing by David, didn't get it. 1 ball, 2 strikes. That's being very careful with David Wright. Missed a lot of time this year with spinal stenosis, narrowing of the spinal column. Giving him a day of rest when he needs it, or when they think he needs it.
Talking to Roger McDowell today about David Wright. We were watching him take some ground balls at third during batting practice, and Roger made a very complimentary comment about Wright, talking about how good for him that when he became a free agent, he had the opportunity to go somewhere else, and boy, the Mets were on the bottom of the heap at that time. He could easily have taken off and left town. He didn't. He stayed. Said he wanted to be part of a rebuilding process, and now he's able to enjoy some of the fruits of that. So what Roger was saying is that he's been hurt almost all year and was missing out, and now he's back able to play again, so he's able to take advantage of it. And I thought that was a very nice thing to say.
David Wright made the playoffs with the Mets 1 time, his second full season, 2006. And you're right, signed a long-term contract that'll keep him the Met through 2020. Murphy got the Mets started with a 2-strike, 2-out homer that went right over the 380 sign in right center field. This one's hit high in the air towards center, but Maben backtracks. 2 outs. And here is Cespedes.
And a look at what the Mets have left on their calendar. They've got 3 games against the Nationals and 6 games left on the upcoming road trip against Cincinnati and Philadelphia. And they own those 2 ball clubs. 17-2 against the Reds and Phillies. And they are 10-6 against the Nationals, 6-3 at Washington. Those last 3 games, however, against Washington will be here. I think it will be a moot point by that time. I think it'll be clinched and it won't matter.
Magic number is 6 for the Mets. Any combo of Mets wins and Nationals losses that add up to 6 means New York is the division champion. And they'll have their big boys lined up for the series against the Reds.
And the Pirates could clinch a spot in the playoffs tonight as a wild card.
Their magic number is 1, and they're in Colorado. Line drive, right center field. That's going to roll to the warning track and to the wall. Cespedes around second. Afterburners are on. He's going to try. Throw to third is not in time. It gets away and backed up by the Braves dugout by Williams Perez. Cespedes with his 4th triple as a Met.
Pitch was out away from him, able to extend his arms and drive it in the gap. And goodness knows the ball does jump off his bat. We're still going to show it to you. We're going to make you look anyway. Here we go. Well, that's the ball rolling. And he never even looked at Maben. He was going for 3 all the way.
So Duda with a double and a run scored. Trying to add to a 2-run New York lead.
It's a good pitch in on Duda. Here you go. It's out away from him and up. And these major league hitters, that's like batting practice. Something belt high and away from them.
Another shift for Duda. This time Oliveira stays on the left side of the infield. It's Jace Peterson who's playing in shallow right. Hector couldn't handle a hot smash the first time Lucas came to the plate. 2 balls and a strike. Seats.
That ball he hit, Duda hit really hard. Everything we've seen the last 2 series for him have been pop-ups off the end of the bat. If he did get a hit, it was a bloop of some kind. He wasn't making solid contact at all. So the way he hit that last ball, his last at bat, maybe in his head triggering something that says, okay, I found something, feels better.
Goes without saying, he's a hugely important part of their offense. Gives them left-right balance, plays first base. When he's right, can hit lefties. And historically, that's been a problem for him. Markedly improved there this year.
They have good balance, and what will be their postseason lineup, right, with he and Murphy and Conforto and Granderson, but they need his pop.
In the air toward left. And that's going to be playable for Michael Bourne. And that will retire the side. No run, 1 hit, 1 left.
Price every day.
Mets 2, Atlanta nothing. We head to inning number 4. Braves fans tonight only, thanks to the Braves Steal of the Week. Get 50% off upper box tickets when the Braves take on the Cardinals October 1st. Sam Hunt will also be performing a free post-game concert after the game. Go to Braves.com/steal for this great offer, but you must buy tonight. Might see Adam Wainwright back in uniform for the Cardinals in that series. He's trying to make a case for the St. Louis bullpen down the stretch.
Yeah, he was supposed to throw a simulated game, I think, 2 days ago to really test it out, see if he could field his position, and as important, see if he could, including in that, cover first.
Cardinals, the final home series for the Braves in 2015. We'll see Jason Hayward back in town for the first time. Happy for Jason. He's having a big year in St. Louis. Cardinals with 95 wins possess the best record in baseball. Fly ball center. That should be handled by Cespedes. Cruising. 10 outs on 28 pitches.
Here are his numbers for his last 9 starts. Very low ERA. He had a rough patch prior to that caused his record to dip a little bit, but he's got it back on track. Had a 3-game winning streak until Marlins beat him last time out.
Little pop to center off the end of the bat. Oliveira swings quickly. 2 outs on 3 pitches.
Interesting that the Braves start was sandwiched in between 2 starts against Miami. I mentioned the loss where he got beat 6-0. He beat them 7-0 with a complete game shutout on September 5th. Had a 30-plus inning scoreless streak working when he came to Atlanta. How many pitches did you tell me he had through the first 9 batters?
That was his 30th pitch.
Good grief. Not even sweating. And that's a lot. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
26 through the 3rd inning, 9 batters.
Slow roller. Easy play. Pitch number 32 ends the Atlanta 4th. 12 up, 12 down for Cologne.
Swisher with a salute to Yogi Berra. And all of baseball mourns the loss of Yogi Berra, but Nick Swisher, a little bit special, folks, because he really knew him. He spent time with him, met him when he joined the Yankees, and because Nick says he's a gym rat, he just kind of gravitated toward Yogi. Yogi being almost like a surrogate grandfather to Swisher. Swisher lost his grandfather shortly before going to the Yankees, so he spent time with him in the off seasons. He took the telephone call this morning when he got the news, and a little emotional talking about it, but shared stories with us, and obviously a loss for baseball, but a real personal loss for Nick Swisher and the relationship he had with Yogi Berra, fellas.
Andre, he was kind of, from what people told me around the Yankees, I'm sure Steve or that Nick would vouch for this, that Yogi was kind of a Pied Piper. I mean, he could sit down and start talking, and then everybody's all of a sudden gravitated to him, listening to what he had to say. And for all of his malaprops and the comedy, Yogi was a very smart baseball man.
And a war hero, too. Let's not forget that. He served during World War II.
I think a gunnery mate at the D-Day invasion.
Yeah, for a missile frigate, I believe they called it, during the Normandy invasion.
I remember When I was with the Royals in the off season, there was always a charity golf tournament.
Ripped into left by Darno. That's 2 sharply hit singles for the Mets catcher who had been struggling.
There was a big charity golf tournament in Wichita that Fred White, the longtime broadcaster for the Royals, he was very involved with it. And a lot of the players, it was an annual event. Everybody got on buses and drove from Kansas City to Wichita to participate. Dick Hauser was the manager of the team at that time, and Yogi would come. And he wouldn't go to Wichita. He'd come to Kansas City and ride the bus to be with Dick and the guys on the bus.
Really?
Yeah. Because he was tight with Hauser from their Yankee days.
And you know what's really cool too? We have in many ways a generational gap in baseball, not just in baseball but in life. Here's a man who in his 70s, his 80s and 90s, much like Don Zimmer when he was still with us, players like Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams and all the Yankees, players would flock from the other dugout to go sit in the dugout and listen to Yogi Berra talk. And he could relate to a 20-year-old kid, a 5-year-old kid, and Whitey Ford with as much ease as you and I are talking right now.
I don't know how long ago this was. I was reading a story today about Yogi talking about Victor Martinez of the Tigers, and before that the Red Sox and whomever, but how he was keeping up with current players and how he liked Martinez's swing because he didn't strike out much. Well, neither did Yogi.
Fly ball into center. Maben handles that shot. Conforto hit that one on the button. 1 out.
For all of his power and production, we can look it up. But there was one year where Yogi had like 500 and some at bats and 12 strikeouts.
What do you think that would pay these days?
And he was supposed to be a bad ball hitter. He was a guy that swung at everything.
Five times in his career, Berra had more homers than strikeouts in a season, and you're right. In 1950, Yogi Berra struck out 12 times in 597 at bats.
Good grief.
And now the Mets are just pinging Perez to death. Already 7 hits. When asked about his penchant for swinging at bad pitches in typical Yogi style, he said, quote, "If I can hit it, it's a good pitch."
Right. If I can reach it.
Right.
For Cologne, you mentioned pinging him. They're going to continue to ping him and pepper him when everything's middle of the plate away.
I'm going to ask you, and maybe we'll ask Williams after the game too. He was a different pitcher after he got hit in the foot in Pittsburgh. He seems like a different pitcher after that ball whistled past the box where he got his foot out of the way.
Yeah, there may be something to that. But if you don't want the ball hit back at you, then pitch inside.
Cologne got it down. Fair ball. One there. Long throw across the diamond in time. And that's a double play. Thank you very much. The ball died right in front of the dish, and A.J. was right there to pounce on it to start an inning-ending double play. A.J. Przinsky will get to work first for the Braves. Told you he's closing in on 2,000 hits. Bench Carter Piazza, and of course Yogi Berra ahead of him on that list for men whose primary position was a catcher.
How many? I mean, what great company for A.J. Bench the next guy up on the list. Mercy. How many All-Stars for Yogi? Was it 17 out of 18 years?
Something like that. 15 consecutive years, I believe he was an All-Star. MVP 3 times. Won the World Series 10 times.
Yeah, I saw a picture of him today with rings stacked up.
That was the great line.
10 of them.
Yeah. Of course, Yogi Berra's number 8 retired by the Yankees, an honor that's shared by Bill Dickey, whom A.J. Przinsky passed earlier this year on the hit chart you just saw. Bill Dickey was the man credited with helping Yogi Berra learn the defensive intricacies of being a major league catcher. In fact, Yogi Berra once had a season behind the plate where he didn't make an error. Fly ball right. Granderson's got it. Colon has 13 up and 13 down.
That's about the hardest hit ball so far. Yeah, and at age 37, a year younger than A.J., Yogi was moved to the outfield and he played left field. And I remember watching him play on television because he stood facing center field. He stood sideways and was asked why he did that, and he said, well, it helps me, you know, like cross over, go come in or go back. And they said, well, if it's hit behind you, and he goes, yeah, I hadn't thought of that much lately.
That sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, but he stood side saddle.
You know who's playing left field when Bill Mazeroski hit the home run?
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
It was Yogi. Simmons. And a strike, even count. Yogi Berra also considered the first man to actually stick his finger outside the catcher's mitt.
Is that right?
Yep. Nobody else had done that until Yogi Berra did it first. Ground ball short. Easy play. And he's rolling. He's got something special brewing right now. 14 up, 14 down. And Jace Peterson's up. You know, he did catch a perfect game, too.
Yeah. That would be very ironic.
Ball one outside. Just grounded out to second. That ended the second innings, and he's 0 for 1. Pop fly out of play, even count. 1 ball, 1 strike.
The lowest number of hits he's given up in a game this year was July 1st against the Cubs here. 7 innings of 3-hit shutout ball, walked 1, struck out 8, and got a no decision because it was a scoreless game. He came out, and the Mets eventually lost 2-0 in 11 innings.
He hooked up with Jake Arrieta in that game.
It wouldn't surprise me on July 1st. That's about the time Arrieta got it turned around. Got it rolling.
I told him it's John Lester. That's another tough hombre. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Little roller. Tejada charges. Fast runner. Gotta hurry. Infield hit for Peterson. So that breaks up the perfect game bid. And Colon will get a nice cheer as he sets down the first 14 in order tonight.
He started to make a move for that and thought better of it to give Tejada a chance, but too far to go for Ruben.
So that takes care of the no hit perfect game nonsense. Let's see if Maybin can tie it up with one swing. He's got 10 homers this year. Strike one.
They have a lot of arms to pick from for their postseason rotation. I don't know if they will. I'm sure they'll give Colon consideration, but at the very least, the way he throws strikes coming out of the bullpen, he'd be a valuable asset.
Popped up. Murphy drifts up behind the second base bag and makes the play. An infield hit, all for Atlanta in the 5th inning. Colon is dealing 44 pitches through 5 scoreless frames.
DUverse, Delta Airlines, and your local Ford dealer.
Pretty night in the Big Apple where the Mets lead 2-0. Braves have but one hit. Fans, coming October 5th, Sports South will have a new name, Fox Sports Southeast. Fox Sports Southeast will carry the same teams you watch today, including your Braves, Hawks, Atlanta Dream, and great college matchups throughout the year. Fox Sports Southeast, home of your home teams.
Well, that's good, because when my realignment plan comes into play and that new division, the Southeastern Division, that'll be great for Fox Sports Southeast to have good coverage of it.
I like your realignment plan.
I wouldn't sit around waiting on it.
Well, I was going to say, then we'd only get to come to New York once a year.
Yeah.
Curtis Granderson is 0 for 2. He's taken the first pitch in each of his last 35 plate appearances, we're told. That's how you walk a lot. Curtis has done that 89 times this year.
Sounds Wade Boggs-like.
Three balls, no strikes.
That wasn't a bad pitch. Didn't get the call. The mound here at Citi Field is a real solid mound, and it needs to be tonight. It's under tremendous pressure.
Fly ball center.
Got one guy out there weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of 285, and then you got Williams Perez. Bartolo makes him look like a 12-year-old. Perez is listed at 6'1", 230. Pound seems to be holding up.
David Wright's 0 for 2. Anderson and Wright 0 for 5 so far tonight. That'll be easy. 2 outs. Nationals still losing 2-1 to Baltimore tonight. That's Max Scherzer against Chris Tillman. Max Scherzer has had a terrific year. Remember, he flirted with a perfect game, had the no-hitter. And after that stretch of 2 or 3 games where he was flirting with a no-hitter every night, his production and his success really tailed off. He has not been the same guy for the Nationals.
Steve Pearce hit a home run off of him in the first inning tonight.
So the Orioles trying to play the role of the spoiler. They've got another game tomorrow, a makeup game for Monday night's rainout. Murphy a villain tonight. Homered on an 0-2 pitch in the first for the Mets.
Boy, have the Angels already beaten Houston today?
Yeah. 6-5 was the final.
Wow.
All of a sudden, the Angels are a game and a half out of the wild card. Rip to right. Markakis is there. And that will retire the Mets in the home 5th. 8-9-1 coming up for Atlanta. They'll try to solve Bartolo Colon. Use hashtag South Data Strong Fan. You just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast brought to you by our friends at T-Mobile. We briefly touched on the American League playoff race. Our DirecTV standings features the junior circuit tonight. The wild card, it's tightening up. Minnesota, if they win tonight, Joe, could be only a game back.
And they're playing Cleveland, who's got a reason to win also. They're right in there with time left. So Minnesota could be a game behind Houston with a win tonight. Amazing. What a season the Twins have had.
Michael Bourne leads off and fouls it away. Strike one. The Yankees breathing easy. They're going to make the playoffs, I would assume. Boy, they got a huge win last night. Greg Bird hit another home run in place of Mark Teixeira as the Yankees came back to stun the Blue Jays in Toronto 6-4 in 10 innings.
Is that like 5 straight games for Bird, the homer? 3 straight.
3 straight.
But I think he's hit 8 this month.
And yeah, 10 homers in his last 34 games. Marku. What a great story that's been. He's born behind 0-2.
Former Brave Urban Santana has really pitched well for Minnesota since he came back from his suspension. They might be sitting pretty if he hadn't missed 50 games. But he will be ineligible for the postseason if they get there.
I like that rule, by the way.
Me too.
Corey Kluber and Phil Hughes, the pitchers in Minnesota tonight. Braves will play the American League Central Interleague play next year. We'll see Minnesota and Joe Mauer and company, and Paul Molitor, who is one of your AL Manager of the Year candidates.
Yeah, the Braves will go to Target Field.
Fouled away. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Yeah, our crew can't wait to see our pal Dan Gladden once again. Bourne takes a walk.
Just the 24th walk he's issued this year in 187 innings. But maybe the start of something here.
Perez with 2 sacrifice bunts. That one right back to the mound, and good for number 3. Sacrifice works. Bourne in scoring position, and now the top of the order is coming up.
Nicely done there by Williams. I would guess that Bartolo Colon might be the easiest guy in the league to bunt off of. You don't have a guy throwing 99 up there trying to soften it somehow, so he's got all this control. He's around the plate. Might be moving a little bit, but at least it's manageable velocity wise.
Nick Markakis with a man at second, 1 out. Don't be fooled by the burly body, though, of Bartolo Colon. We've seen him really bounce off the mound. No pun intended. I mean, he's a good athlete.
He is. Very strong.
There's a base hit to left. Bourne around third will be stopped. Conforto got to it quickly. And the Braves have something cooking now. First and third, 1 out. And Hector Olivera coming up.
Smart play there by Bo Porter. Already 6 assists for Conforto since he got called up. And that's among the leaders for rookies. I think Michael Taylor of Washington has.
He's up there.
6. Yeah.
Well, this is only Conforto's 48th game,
right.
So yeah, that's very impressive. So a great chance for the Braves to score at least 1 run here. Olivera has grounded out and flied out. Rare walk for Bartolo Colon, who had 14 starts without a base on balls this year. And a Markakis 6th inning single has Braves at the corners down 2-0. Last National League pitcher with more than 14 no-walk starts. Greg Maddux had 15 of them in 2008. He also had a 31-inning scoreless streak that the Braves snapped back in Atlanta September 10th.
He's only hit 4 batters this year, so don't think that that was wildness. That was a purpose pitch. Trying to get back to the outside corner, and there goes d'Arnaud.
It really is fun to think along with this man on the mound, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a great example for Williams or any of the other young Braves pitchers. If you want to get away with this breaking ball, then throw something inside that makes him move his feet, get him off the plate a little bit, so that he's thinking about that before he tries to hang out over the plate again. Just really common sense.
Doubled up on that breaking ball. That one missed badly. Full count. Will Freddie run with Markakis on a 3-2 count with 1 out?
I don't think so. We'd like to keep the inning alive, even if Oliveira fans.
Not going. Popped him up. And to left. Conforto comes charging in. Bourne at the bag. Tags. And isn't coming. That sounded funny off the bat.
Well, it was something off speed that he had him out on his front foot on, which is why I didn't understand the way the Mets pitched Oliveira last night after they walked Markakis in front of him. He just, I don't know what that was. I don't think it was a slider. It might have been. Just took a little bit off. And that's where they've had success against Oliveira. And last night they kind of dumb pitched him. 3 straight fastballs. The third one he hit in the seats.
Yeah, that spoiled what was, we thought, real sound strategy by Terry Collins. Would you rather face Markakis, who's in the top 3 in hits in a tie game, or that man who's just making his way in the big leagues for the first time? Logan Verrett got burned, as did New York. First and third, 2 outs now for Swisher. He's 0 for 2. And he's over the late. I know we show Bartolo's pitch arsenal. He really does have 12 pitches, though, doesn't he? He can change speeds with all of them.
Yes. In all 4 quadrants of the strike zone.
Just like that, he's ahead of Swisher 0-2. Ball, 2 strikes for Nick Swisher, getting the start at first base.
Good numbers here with 2 outs.
That's a pitch that might have skipped past d'Arnaud earlier in the year. He got way down in his catcher's crouch and blocked that ball downstairs. 2-2.
That glove turned over just in time, too.
Slow roller right side. Murphy charges. Got to hurry. And he got his man. And that'll retire the side. Bartolo Colon with 6 shutout innings. The Braves strand a pair in the top of the 6th. Yogi Berra, who passed away today at an assisted living facility here in metropolitan New York at the age of 90 years of age. And this is what President Obama had to say. He was an American original, Hall of Famer and humble veteran, prolific jokester and jovial prophet. He epitomized what it meant to be a sportsman and a citizen with a big heart, competitive spirit, and a selfless desire to open baseball to everyone, no matter their background. And, of course, the president and his family offered his condolences to the Yankee great today, too.
.58 tops. Some say he was 5'7", about 185 pounds. Lee MacPhail, I think was Andy MacPhail's grandfather, who's now with the Phillies. Lee MacPhail, when they signed him, he said he looked like the bottom half of a acrobatic duo.
The guy that hold the guy on his shoulders, right?
Yeah, right.
But obviously a poet laureate of baseball as this one's bounced back to that. A lot of comebackers for Perez. A lot of favorite quotes for Yogi Berra, who once said so eloquently, you can observe a lot by watching.
Yes, I've noticed that.
Another great one, which might really be appropriate these days. Little League Baseball is a very good thing because it keeps the parents off the streets. You know, times weren't always rosy for Yogi Berra with the Yankees. He was their manager and was released very early. I believe it was in the '85 season. And George Steinbrenner wasn't the man that delivered him the news. And Yogi Berra was really hurt by that. In fact, he was so upset that he made a vow that he would never, ever return to Yankee Stadium as long as George Steinbrenner owned the team. And it took the intervention of Susan Waldman, who's now one of the Yankees radio broadcasters, to arrange a meeting between George Steinbrenner and Yogi Berra at his museum in New Jersey. Those two gentlemen went into a room, talked everything out, came out all smiles, and the truce was achieved. And Yogi Berra went back for Old Timers Day in the Bronx to what I'm sure was thunderous applause.
Yeah, that's great that they got their differences settled. Yogi needed to be there.
Lucas Duda, 3-1 count, takes outside, ball 4, a 1-out walk. New York 2, Atlanta 1. Can't give them any more, not the way Colon's pitching. It's only Perez's first walk in the game to go along with 7 Mets hits. Looks like Mr. Darno's figured a couple of things out. After an 0-for-16 slide, he's had 2 really hard hit singles tonight. Strike 1.
Keep in mind too that Terry Collins has been playing a lot of people, so trying to rest a few guys, win a few games, hold the Nationals at bay. So perhaps getting a few more at bats for Darno has helped.
I think Terry Collins has done an amazing job with all the shuffling he's had to do. The innings restrictions that have been placed on his young pitchers, Harvey Gate, DeGrom being moved back, the issues that he had to deal with his bullpen. Remember they had a guy suspended twice this year.
And lived through the seasons they've had the last 3 years that were just awful.
Yeah.
And the expectations last year, when I may have been the GM, said, you know, we expect to play better than 500 ball or whatever it was. And they tied the Braves for second, which was not a 500 season. But I didn't like what Terry said last night. I didn't like the quote where he said, you know, he seemed to be playing a little tight. I didn't think that sent a good message to your team to even suggest it. And David Wright quickly dispelled that, as I said earlier in the broadcast. But this time of year, I know that they've lost 5 out of 7, but they still have a 6-game lead, and the calendar's getting shorter. You know, I don't see any signs of that. Obviously, he did. But I wouldn't want to put that thought in my player's head.
3-2 pitch, fly ball center, and that should be a can of corn for Cameron. He's got it, 2 outs. Well, the schedule certainly favors the Mets. The advantage in the division favors the Mets. They've got a 6.5 game lead and roughly 2 weeks to play. However, this is a franchise that is scarred by collapse. They talk a lot about 2007. They had big lead late, didn't finish it off. So until those demons are exorcised, there are some around here that won't forget what happened here 8 years ago. The difference then was, though, with 12-13 games left, their lead was 2.5 games, not 6.5.
Yeah, Kelly Johnson addressed that yesterday, talking to him by the batting cage. Actually, 2 days ago, he said, man, that's all anybody's talking about now, because we lost 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. It's like, oh no, here it comes. He said these are all different people, different players, different manager.
Yeah, it sounds very Cub-like. Right? I mean, really, it does. There's always impending doom around the next corners. A little skid hits the club. 2-0 pitch. A good one.
Good change up there. His pitch count is manageable, certainly at this point. He's not due up. Hopefully he gets up in the top half of the 7th inning. He'll be up 6th.
Matt Marksberry is up and throwing in the bullpen as this one's back to the mound. Perez has fielded his position well, and that takes care of New York in the 6th. Let's get the kid a couple of runs. 2-0 Mets. We go to the 7th. % off upper box tickets when the Braves take on the Cardinals on October 1st. Sam Hunt will perform a free post-game concert after the game. Go to Braves.com for this great offer, but you must buy tonight. Joe and Chip with you from New York. We are through 6 innings.
Wow. Dapper Dan there. That's styling at the old ballpark.
Is white still in fashion? It's the first day of autumn tonight. Can you still wear the white shoes, white slacks this time of year?
I'd rather consult A.J. Przinsky on this. He's the fashionista.
Yeah. By the way, we got to the bottom of what happened with A.J. last night.
I do like his purse. I think that's all right this time of year.
A base hit to left for A.J. We showed you the fan last night being escorted out of the ballpark. In typical New York fashion, I think there was some confusion by that New York fan. He got A.J.'s number incorrect. He was telling him that A.J. was number 11.
Yeah, he was using both hands.
Yeah, and A.J. got upset by that. And then when A.J. found out he was a Cubs fan, he had the fan ejected for using foul language. And then there were several other fans who joined in the chorus, and AJ just started pointing, okay, get him, get her, get him, get that guy, get him out of
and they did.
Yeah, they threw him out. So it wasn't because that guy was wearing a horrible blue vest. It was because
he was more verbal.
Yeah, he said he was a Cub fan. AJ didn't like that too much. So the tying run on for the Hamilton Simmons, and just foul.
Well, I think that other fellow that we saw a minute ago is more of a Great Gatsby fan. I think that's how Gatsby would dress coming to the ballpark.
Yeah, might be. That looks awful no matter what it wears. Did you know there's a Mrs. Met too?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No balls, 2 strikes. Wide over short. That'll get down for a hit. So Colon gives up a base hit on an 0-2 count. And with that one, Andrelton Simmons now has 29 hits against Mets pitching this year.
Came on a changeup. You heard the sound, I'm sure. He just one-handed it a little bit off the end of the bat. But he had it covered. And it was up. And that was a difference maker.
Is going to make his way to the mound. The Mets bullpen just got up and began to work. And it's Buddy Carlisle. No, that's not. That's Addison Reed.
Yeah.
I was going to say Buddy Carlisle's.
Yeah, he's on the DL.
Yeah, he's hurt. My mistake. And Worthen with a chat with Bartolo Colon. Off day for the Braves tomorrow. We'll join you Friday night down in Miami. Jose Fernandez against Ryan Weber.
You don't think the Marlins held Fernandez back a day just to pitch against the Braves, do you?
There's a lot on the line in that series down there. Fernandez has yet to lose a home game in his career. See if the Braves can take care of that business in a couple of nights. Another chance, 2 on, nobody out for Peterson. Bartolo Colon started tonight's game, retired the first 14 men in a row. Chase hit a little squibbing, rolling ball toward the shortstop. Colon thought about chasing after it, but too much ground for Tejada to cover. By the time he made the throw to first, Chase with his good speed legged out an infield hit.
Chase tried to put a bunt down last night, was not successful. Popped it up to the catcher.
Just had a word with Bull Porter. Let's see if the bunt's on here with nobody out. Nope. At least not with that pitch. 2 balls, no strikes. In the air to center. Cespedes glides and gets it. Little nervous anticipation by the faithful here in New York as the Braves threaten with 1 out now in the inning. And Cameron Maben the batter. The Nationals have tied Baltimore 2-2 in the 5th. Remember, Washington and the Mets do have 3 games left, the final 3 games of the regular season, and they will be here in New York. The Mets want to make those games meaningless.
Braves had first and third, one out last inning. Didn't score. First and second, nobody out this inning so far.
Shot pass due to into right field. Brzezinski will be stopped at third. The Braves have loaded them up. So 3 hits in the 7th brings up Michael Bourne, and let's see if that's going to be the end of the line for Cologne. Apparently it is going to be the end of the line. He's due second when the Mets hit, so Terry Collins is going to come out and make a double switch. 75 pitches for Bartolo Colon. He goes 6 1/3 innings. He's scattered 5 hits. The Braves threaten. They've got him loaded. 1 out. 2-0 New York in front. Have loaded the bases, and the Mets make a double switch and bring on Kirk Nieuwenhuis. He'll hit 9th and play left field. And now Addison Reed is going to come on and pitch. Boy, has he been good since they picked him up around the deadline. Unscored upon in 11 outings as a Met.
2 walks, 13 strikeouts in 11 innings with New York. He's the guy that looks like he's throwing really hard, and he's throwing hard enough, but it looks like he's throwing about 99. And he's right around 91, 92. Can pop it up around 93 with a good slider.
Michael Bourne will be the first man that faces him. Freddie Freeman's grabbed a bat, and he's in the on-deck circle for Atlanta as well. 2-0 Mets lead. Braves have a great chance to play the role of the spoiler. Don't forget, Sam Hunt live in concert Thursday, October 1st when the Nationals are in town. Field passes are available on a limited basis. They're $40 each. It's presented by Delta and Coca-Cola. Michael 0 for 1 with a walk.
Shallow in left and center. Granderson about normal in right. Mets are playing for 2 up the middle, but David Wright would come home.
Rolled foul, even count. Lefty's only hitting .218 this year against Addison Reed. Darno held it there, but it was low.
At 94, just missed the bottom of the zone. Bob Guerin checking that Braves chart. Bench coach for the Mets.
Missed again. Reed looks in again at Paul Schreiber. Now Michael really in the driver's seat.
Those were some really good takes. Great patience.
And Bourne flips the bat away and takes a strike. Freddie Gonzalez thought that was outside. Full count. Was it?
And high. Definitely outside.
3-2. Line drive, base hit. AJ scores. Here comes Simmons to third. He'll stop there, and it's a one-run game. Justice served. Michael Bourne with an RBI hit. And now things are very interesting in New York because Freddie Freeman's coming up. The Braves on the board and the bases still loaded.
One of the luxuries of having one of your key hitters on the bench for a game is being able to plug them in anywhere you want. Bases loaded, one out is an ideal time, but remember, that right wrist still a problem for Freddie. And that's why he's not in there tonight.
A fly ball could get it tied. Strike one.
I asked him, you know, I've mentioned several times about how he's jamming himself and taking his hands with him. I said, is that why you've been trying to cheat and get the bat started early? And he said, no doubt, that is why.
Two perfect pitches.
Well, they're two right in the same spot, and they're neither one a strike. He didn't give him that pitch a minute ago.
Nothing and two. Fly ball down the right field line. Granderson onto the warning track. It's off the wall. One run scores. Streaking around third, Maben. He's going to come home and score. And Freddie Freeman has doubled off the wall in right. And Atlanta has taken a 3-2 lead. That ball just kept carrying and carrying off the fence. Granderson couldn't catch up.
They decided to go with a fastball up, and he made him pay. I thought, well, okay, good. Sacrifice fly ties the game. I'm really shocked that this went off the wall. And I think Granderson might have been too, as he was late getting there.
So Freeman doubles on an 0-2 count. The Braves have two 0-2 hits in this inning. And now they lead by a run. Bourne all the way around to third base. Freeman at second. And this crowd in New York is stunned.
And all three runs belong to Cologne.
Who's now on the short end of tonight's decision.
Watching Granderson go after that ball, I mean, he's a good outfielder, but anytime you see a guy as good as he is kind of chase that ball all the way to the wall and then have to chase it back off the wall, I think it fooled him completely in terms of how far it carried. Otherwise, he'd have had time to maybe get there and have a chance to catch it.
So a 3-2 score here, a 3-2 score in Washington. Granderson tracking, took a peek, got too close to the fence, couldn't handle the ricochet.
The way the Braves base runners were, had he played it off the wall instead of trying to catch it, they might have gotten an out somewhere. They might have, Braves might have only gotten one run.
Back to the mound. Reed's coming home for one. Throw to first, two, double play. Oliveira taps one off the end of the bat. But not before Atlanta does some serious damage. They score 3 runs on 5 hits. And at the stretch, Atlanta stunning the Mets. 3-2 your score.
And by Hotel Transylvania 2, in theaters September 25th.
The most popular way to follow the action of Braves baseball is with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Enjoy live look-ins, highlights, replay reviews, scores, StatCast, live radio broadcasts, and more. Get the MLB.com at bat app now. Freddie Freeman stays in the game. He's at first base. Williams Perez, 6 innings of 7 hit, 2-run ball, is in line for the win if Atlanta's bullpen can get it done. First man out is Matt Marksberry.
Brought in to face a part of the order where there's at least 2 left-handers due up. Neuenhuis and then Granderson, the second, third batters of the inning. 26th outing. And as we keep saying about Matt, he keeps getting more and more responsibility late in the game, especially against left-handed hitters. He's still struggling against right-handers, but lefties, he's been wearing them out.
Well, 2 righties are going to start the inning. Tejada first, then Michael Kadire, then the top of the order.
So Kadire's going to hit for Neuenhuis. Wasn't Neuenhuis placed there in the double switch?
He was. That's the beauty of the expanded rosters. You can change them at will.
Get this first guy.
Braves haven't retired him yet. Tejada 2 for 2. He had a second inning run scoring hit. Line drive left, leadoff hit. He's 3 for 3.
There's a breaking ball. If he's going to throw a breaking ball to right-handers, he's got to learn how to throw that breaking ball to the back foot and not up in the middle of the plate like that one. He's got to bury it in the back foot and get him to swing over the top of it. Hopefully that will come. And with Kadire announced, Freddie's going to make a double switch, looks like.
So Marksberry faces one hitter, gives up the single to Tejada. And we'll tell you who the new Braves reliever is when we come back to a 1-run game in Gotham.
Let's Go Places, Zaxby's, and Georgia Power.
Well, in typical Yogi Berra fashion, who once coined the phrase, "It ain't over till it's over," it never is when you play the Mets. Changes for Atlanta. Pedro Ciriaco takes over at third base. He will hit third. And Brandon Caniff will come on in relief of Matt Marksberry. He'll bat second. And he makes his 37th appearance.
He was in here in the game a couple of nights ago, worked an inning, gave up a walk, and had a strikeout. This is where your bench coach really helps you out, keeps you abreast of everything that's going on. When Freddie Freeman came in and pinch hit, batted ninth, he stayed in the game. So he stayed in the game at first base. So Marksberry went into the 3 spot where Swisher was. Well, that spot's supposed to lead off in the 8th. So rather than lose that to a pitcher, Carlos Tosca, keeping Freddie abreast of things, makes a double switch. They take Oliveira out, put Ciriaco in the 3rd spot, and Caniff will bat in the 2 hole, which is
9 hitters away.
9 hitters away. That's a bench coach's responsibility to keep all that straight and keep you aware of what you could do as a manager.
Michael Kadire goes to work and takes a strike. Eric Young Jr. has got his track shoes on. He's the pinch runner at first base for Tejada.
Got him. Oh.
How close? Tag on the elbow. 0-1 for Kadire. And another throw to first. That's in for a strike. Kadire will be a hugely important man for the Mets in postseason play. When they play the Dodgers, they don't want Conforto hitting against lefties. Kadire will hit the lefties. He's got a righty in there now, and another close play at first. Young nearly picked off. Freddie Freeman wants that one to be looked at.
Look how far back to the bag, to the middle part of the bag, Young went with his hand. They're going to let it go. Oh, he did get the corner and then slid to the middle.
So he knows how far he can measure off his lead now. A couple of close calls with Kadire up there. 0-2 the count. Braves 3, Mets 2. And that one tipped and caught. Kadire's down on strikes.
Nice job. Nice job.
And now Curtis Granderson.
Braves still have 2 lefties in the bullpen if he wants to use them. McKirahan, who's had trouble with left-handers. But the third guy, Ross Detweiler, hasn't pitched in a long time. I know he had a hamstring issue. He hasn't pitched since September 10th against the Mets at home.
Granderson's 0 for 3 tonight, 1 for 9 in the series. And there was a big cheer in Washington when the Braves scored 3 in the top of the inning. It's a 3-2 Braves lead. Runner goes. Pitch outside. AJ's throw. Short hops and is late. Eric Young got in ahead of the tag. Is Hamilton all right? Get a little dirt in the eye. Might have. He thought he got the tag down in time. Braves are checking.
He did a marvelous job of catching the short hop and making it even close. But they did not get him.
Big stolen base for Eric Young. 2-0 count for Granderson. Tying run in scoring position. Low. 3-0. David Wright on deck. Swing and a rocket to right. Right at Markakis. 2 outs.
Nick's been battling that muscle up in his trapezius muscle. Is that what it is? Up in his neck and shoulder. And I asked him after the game last night how he fared, and he said, I was doing fine until I made that diving catch. And when he did, he made that extension with his left arm to make the catch last night. Had to go to one knee there to make that one.
Anderson got a 3-0 green light, hit it on the button, but right at Markakis for the second out of the inning. And now it's David Wright, who's 0 for 3. Wright has not gotten the ball out of the infield tonight.
No one up in the Atlanta pen.
If you recall, got off to such a great start for the Braves in relief this year. He just wore out right-handed hitters. In fact, they're still hitting only a .130 against him this year. They started 0 for 30 against him. Line drive, base hit by Wright. That's going to tie the game. The captain comes through for New York. Manufacture the game-tying run with 2 outs in the 7th. I think David Wright's given Freddie Freeman an earful for making it tough on the Mets with his 2-run double.
Well, it doesn't mean a thing if Eric Young doesn't swipe the bag, does what he's supposed to do by providing them a chance to tie it. A bigger crowd here, it seems, tonight than we've had the first 2 nights, and they love that.
To left, and Bourne catches that one, and that will retire the side. A run, 2 hits. What a ball game. Mets and Braves. We go to the 8th. Reserve ticket for any remaining game this year and a Saturday Tour Championship grounds pass for $89. That's a savings of up to 34%. Go to Braves.com for more information. 3 changes for the Mets. Wilmer Flores has checked into play shortstop. Tyler Clippard is on the mound. He has an 11.25 ERA against the Braves this year. And Eric Young stays in the game to play left.
Yeah, and the third straight night he's worked against the Braves. An inning, a hit, a couple of strikeouts on Monday, but last night the Braves did their number on him. 2 hits, a walk, and 2 runs. He gave up a double to start his inning, and then 2 outs, and then he walked Michael Bourne, and then Adonis Garcia hit a 2-run double off of him.
Clippard will hit 7th. Flores will bat 9th. And Pedro Ciriaco will lead things off for the Braves in the 8th. What a series, what a game. Braves trying to take 2 out of 3 from the Mets. They're making life tough on New York. And that dropped in for a strike. Reed, 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, no runs with an intentional walk. The 3 runs that scored belong to Cologne. Pins, and Ciriaco got smoked on an 0-2 count.
That was a completely different windup for Clippard. I don't know if he slipped or what he did, but that didn't even look like him throwing the pitch. It looked like his front spike dragged when he was striding to the plate. It looked like it dragged the front slope of the mound and threw everything off.
Thank you very much. Go ahead run at first for A.J. Przinsky, who singled and scored the first of 3 Atlanta runs in the 7th. A.J.'s had a good series, 4 hits. Strike. Tyler Clippard's ERA against the Braves 11.25 this year. Against the rest of the big leagues, his ERA 2.43.
They have owned him again. AJ would love to get something to pull here.
He did. Soft line drive right to Duda, and Ciriaco dived back safely. AJ broke his bat. 1 on, 1 out.
Boy, Pedro had to make a quick U-turn because all Duda has to do is step on the bag. He doesn't have to tag him. And Ciriaco had to quickly beat him to the bag.
One on, 1 out for Simmons. He singled on an 0-2 pitch. His 29th hit against the Mets.
How about a 30th hit on a hit and run?
That'd be a great call. It makes sense. Ciriaco runs well. Simmons almost never strikes out. A little pressure on the Mets infield defense. $28,391. 28391. Attendance. Ground ball. Murphy to Flores to Duda. Double play. Not sure if Clipper got a piece of that or not. Whether he did or not doesn't matter. It's double play, and the Mets are up in the 8th, tied at 3. has turned into a nail-biter. 3-3 as we hit the home eighth. Bartolo Colon started for the Mets, retired the first 14 in a row. He has 8 career wins against the Braves, 4-0 this year. What Met pitcher has the most wins against Atlanta?
You sticking with Seaver?
Tom Seaver.
I'm going to go Al Leiter.
And it is.
Way to go.
Tom Terrific with 21 career victories. Yoenis Cespedes leads off for New York in the eighth. Cespedes, Duda, d'Arnaud. Cespedes a third inning triple. New York has left 6 men on base tonight. 4 of them in scoring position. Single runs in the first, second, and 7th. Cespedes, our Zaxby's indescribably good play. That's the damage he's done with the Mets.
And the 17 homers, 42 RBIs with New York are the reason his name is being thrown in to the MVP race for what he's done for this club.
Fly ball center. Maybe twists and turns and makes the grab on the track.
Yikes.
That was close.
Yeah. Got to be an athlete, though, to make that kind of adjustment and still make the catch. He got turned the wrong way. And that ball was hit hard. Turned to his right, tried to turn back to his left without taking his eye off the ball, and that was a nice play. Quick feet. That was a defensive back, getting those hips turned. Well done.
Here's Lucas Duda. He doubled in the second and scored the second Mets run. Duda's 7 for his last 41 at bats. That's in September 7th when he came off the DL. Dangerous man with a dangerous count. 2-0. Anderson swung on a 3-0 count. Let's see if Lucas has the hit privilege here.
You have to assume that he will. Can't just groove one.
Not
good
what
pitch.
He wanted. Was a good pitch.
Good pitch down the bottom of the zone.
If has battled back for a full count now. 3-2.
Good fastball. 94.
Duda walks. So that's the winning run for New York. d'Arnaud is the hitter. He's 2 for 3 tonight.
They've got Lagares over there on the bench if they want to use him, but he's had an assortment of injuries that have bothered him. They've also got another infielder, Dilson Herrera, who could pinch run. They got Eric Campbell, who can play first.
And you've got Kelly Johnson, who can play just about any place for you.
Good point.
And he's on deck. d'Arnaud takes a high strike. Wow, Baltimore just took the lead in Washington. Crowd sees that. Manny Machado just hit a 2-run homer off Scherzer.
I tell you, when that happens during the season, during a pennant race, you can't imagine what a good adrenaline bump you get if you're the hitter. You got a chance to do something good, and you hear that, you know what it's about.
Darno chased the ball off the plate, and Kniff carved him up on 3 pitches. Duda at first. It will be Kelly Johnson with 2 outs.
And maybe as a result, he tried to do too much.
Freddie Gonzalez isn't going to let Kelly Johnson face Brandon Kniff. He has Edwin Jackson loosening in the bullpen, and that apparently is going to be the call for the Braves skipper. So no McCarrahan, no Detweiler. Looks like Edwin Jackson's coming on. Kniff an inning and 2/3 of 1 hit, 1 walk ball. Fan photo of the game. Tweet your strongest fan photo to #SouthDataStrongFan for a chance to be featured in an upcoming broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile.
It's like a classmate of yours.
Yeah.
UGA 64.
Hope it's the one on the right. All right, Edwin Jackson, stage is yours. Kelly Johnson versus Edwin Jackson, tie game. Runner at first for the Mets, 2 outs in the 8th inning.
No runs allowed in his last 3 outings, and none of those outings as important as the one last night. Boy, he came in with the bases loaded, 1 out in the 8th inning. Was able to give up a sacrifice fly and then get a ground out to allow only 1 run. As he said to me tonight, damage control. That was exactly what it was, and a great job.
Kelly at 270, 14 homers. And a knee-high strike, 0-1.
And a shift on for him with Andrelton playing almost directly behind the bag at second. Siriaco way over toward shortstop.
Fouled off A.J. Przinsky, 0-2.
Yeah, Kelly a good fastball hitter, but he's challenged him twice. I wonder when the last time was Kelly Johnson came up to pinch hit and a pitching change was made, but it was a right-hander who was brought in to pitch to him.
Duda walked with 1 out. That came against Kniff. Way upstairs, 1 ball, 2 strikes. Can't tell you how dramatically this game has changed. The Braves were just
offensively
set up and knocked down by Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, dead in the water offensively, and then put together 2 hits to start the 7th. That got him going. Freddie's big double put him on top.
Bartolo Colon had thrown 36 pitches, retiring the first 14 hitters. An infield single took care of that. The Braves chased him in the 7th. All 3 runs belonged to Colon. Williams Perez allowed 2. Mark Sperry 1. Duda is Kniff's responsibility. Kelly Johnson belongs to Edwin Jackson. This is where Kelly Johnson gets scary for me. When he starts fouling 3 or 4 pitches off, starts to reel that pitcher in.
So short, so quick, so powerful. Off speed might be the ticket here, but not for a strike.
It was an off-speed pitch, and Kelly Johnson swings and misses. Kniff and Jackson navigate their way through the home 8th. Braves go to work in the 9th. We're still tied 3-3 in Game 3. The 9th inning.
His numbers are crazy, and especially crazy good since July 31st. Since then, 25 innings pitched, he's given up 1 run. That's the lowest ERA in the majors over that stretch, and he has the 6th lowest for the season at 1.59. And it's the 4th lowest single season ERA in Mets history.
So is Juris Familia, to your way of thinking, a legitimate Cy Young candidate in
no doubt
National League pitching ranks?
Absolutely, has to be. We've rearranged. It was like domino shuffling today when we were looking at this. I've moved Jake Arrieta to the top of the list in terms of odds-on winner. Greinke and Kershaw. I still think Zach Greinke's going to be a top-flight contender, but he and Kershaw may split the vote a little bit. But you got to include Familia and what he's done for the Mets with 41 saves. But Jake Arrieta, are you kidding me? Complete game shutout with his 20th win. Awesome.
First Cub since John Lieber to reach the 20-win plateau for the Cubs. So here we go, 9th inning, tie game. Jace Peterson leads off for Atlanta. Jace broke up the perfect game bid of Colon with a 5th inning infield hit with 2 outs. There's not a whole lot of mystery with what Familia is going to bring. It's a very impressive arsenal.
Yeah, he throws hard. He's mid to upper 90s with a fastball. He's got a slider, but you don't even think about that. It's his split finger pitch. That's his off pitch. And there's the quick pitch.
And now you see Jace asking 4 times so he can get set. What a weapon that is. Did it again. And out of play. 0-2. Hitting's timing, pitching's destroying timing. Simple as that.
Yeah, and you've got to look at it like a windup. As soon as you see him get his signing and put his hands together, you've got to assume he's going to make a quick pitch. If he doesn't, okay, but assume he's going to.
That was the more deliberate offering, and Peterson took it for strike 3. Filthy. 1 out.
Got some help there from d'Arnaud too. High strike call. Good pitch. I said forget about the slider too, didn't I?
1 out for Maven. Cameron scored the 3rd Atlanta run.
He did something in that at bat too to reach base when he hit that base hit to right field. Was he took a swing like we saw him take most of the season, just trying to put the ball in play the other way, staying inside the baseball, not over swinging. It was a good stroke.
I would guess that'd be a good approach against a guy throwing as hard as Familia is. Just trying to punch it between Murphy and Duda.
Just get the barrel out there. Unless he hangs a breaking ball, that slider or the split somehow, you don't expect these right-handers to turn on it. But just the same, David Wright guarding the line, try to prevent a double.
One ball, 2 strikes, base is empty. Broke his bat. Right, cuts it off. Throws on the run. Duda can't handle the scoop.
That's an easy play, Chip, if he's not guarding the line. He had too far to go, and with his momentum taking him towards second, he couldn't get anything on that throw. It'll be a base hit. See how far he had to go to cut this off, and now because of that angle and having to try to throw back to first, literally nothing on it.
So Cameron, who had but 3 hits since the 13th of September, he has 2 in his last 2 tries tonight, and he can fly. Michael Bourne's up there with an RBI hit on his line score tonight too. Let's see how Freddie Gonzalez plays it. They've been stolen 22 bags this year.
Go for it. I mean, literally, what do you got to lose?
Right.
d'Arnaud 32% on catching base stealers.
Off the plate even. d'Arnaud had trouble catching that. 1 ball, no strikes. Make him work.
And that was a split off the plate. Sends his manager pacing.
Mets led this game 3-0. Big part 2-0. Then it was 3-2. Then they tied it 3-3. Missed inside. have gotten a break with that call. 3-0.
Well, I thought he got a benefit of the doubt on the strike 3 call to Peterson. May have been evened up right there.
Bourne walks 4 straight out of the zone, and the Braves are in business. 2 on, 1 out. And Freddie Freeman up in another big situation for Atlanta. He doubled home 2 runs in the Atlanta 7th.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, Freddie didn't start the game batting 9th. He came in as a pinch hitter in the 7th with the bases loaded, and on an 0-2 pitch hooked one off the right field wall. Looked like it was just going to be a sacrifice fly, but carried to the fence, and that put the Braves on top. Freddie had to wait actually to that hurt. Sliding off the bag like that would hurt your back. But he had to wait for Bourne because Michael had gone back to tag up at first base, and Freddie was late getting to second. Great numbers against a guy who's been red hot. The Braves 4 for 7 tonight with runners in scoring position.
Freddie's already provided our great clip of the game. Let's see if he can provide a go-ahead hit in the 9th. Flyers aboard for the Braves. Swing and a miss. That's his best fastball tonight. Thrown with a bit of anger. At 98 miles an hour, 0-1. Fly ball, well hit, left center field. That ball is
gone. It had the sound. And it certainly had the distance. Familia shook off 2 signs. And there's the hanger. Left it up in the zone. Goodbye.
A 5 RBI night for Freddie Freeman, who didn't enter the game until the 7th inning. And it's a 6-3 Braves lead in the 9th, and the Mets faithful are stunned.
Off their closer, Superb, who's been unhittable. They've given up 1 run since July 31st until this inning.
Guess Freddie's wrist feels pretty good now, doesn't it?
No, woofing.
1 ball, no strikes for Nick Markakis. 3 in the 7th, 3 in the 9th. You told me in the 5th inning the Braves would do what they're doing in the second half of this game. I'd said no chance.
No chance. I thought they were on the bus to LaGuardia. Great comeback.
So now the Mets look at the scoreboard and hope that Baltimore can hang on in Washington. That game is in the 8th inning, where the Orioles lead 4-3. If that score holds, the Mets would shave another number off the magic number, which stands at 6 at the moment. Braves have won 4 of 5 games coming into play tonight. The Mets have lost 5 of 7 after an 8-game winning streak. And now they start a long road trip in Cincinnati next. Action continues in the Mets pen. Familia will make his 20th pitch. It struck out Markakis. Nick is retired. Second strikeout for Familia. 2 outs.
A 3-run blitz. It started with that broken bat infield hit by Maben that had David Wright been playing his normal spot, probably makes that play with ease, but was guarding the line.
So Adonis Garcia is going to come on and pinch hit for Edwin Jackson here.
He had the big pinch hit double last night off of Clippard.
And that's in for a strike. Swing and a miss. Juris Familia allows his first home run since July 30th. And the Mets faithful are stunned. Freddie Freeman with 2 at-bats, 2 extra base hits, 5 RBIs, and a huge go-ahead homer that sends us to the bottom of the 9th inning. Here's your Toyota game summary.
That looks a whole lot better, doesn't it?
You bet.
When you get all 3 of those A's shining up there. Great job. Freddie Freeman didn't even start the game, and he's got 5 RBIs and 2 at-bats. Bartolo Colon was seeking to win his 5th game of the year against the Braves. That's not going to happen, and Atlanta needs 3 outs to leave town with a series victory.
Love played the role of the spoiler, and Vizcaíno will try to nail down his 7th save.
Aroldis pitched here last night, an inning, struck out 2. It was not a save situation because the Braves had more than a 3-run lead, but he looked sharp doing it.
And he'll face Juan Uribe, who hasn't played the last couple of games for the Mets. He has a bruised chest. He dived and landed on top of the baseball. Let's see how Uribe swings the bat. Had a good cut, didn't get it. Right down the middle for strike 1. That's what you want. For a right there with a 3-run lead, and if they hit it out, so be it. Don't walk people.
This Mets team had pixie dust working in Atlanta. They need some more of that now.
39 comeback wins this year for the Mets. One of them at remarkable game at Turner Field when they were down to their last strike and started a 3-run rally. It's fouled off AJ. And it's 1-2. Uribe, Flores, and Curtis Granderson in the ninth. Line drive into center field. Uribe, a pinch hit single. So here come the Mets in the ninth with cult hero Wilmer Flores coming up.
.98 fastball. Like Kelly Johnson, Uribe can turn a heater around too.
Flores wasn't traded to Milwaukee. The Mets kept him, and boy, are they glad they did. And a strike.
Good first pitch.
Last 39 games dating back to August 2nd. Flores 5 homers, 20 runs, and 17 RBIs. Ground ball right side. Peterson to Simmons one. Strong arm got his man double play.
What a luxury when you know all you got to do is just get the ball to Andrelton, field it and get it over there to him. You don't have to hurry. Well, that was a long, stiff, backhanded toss too. Well played. Perfect feed too, coming across the bag to help him get out of the way.
One ball, one strike for Granderson. Last time the Braves won back-to-back games on the road. You ready for this? July 6th and 7th.
Milwaukee.
Yep.
I'll be darned. Well, last night, that was an amazing stat that Gretchen gave us, that last night's win was the first one the Braves had won that did not include the Braves and Phillies since July 26th in St. Louis.
Yeah, the road has not been kind to the Braves.
Yes, I should have said road.
Three balls, two strikes for Granderson. Don't walk him. Ground ball second. Peterson's got it. And the Braves played the role of the spoiler to perfection in Gotham.
What a great game for the Braves.
They've taken 2 out of 3 from New York. They come back and stun the Mets, overcoming a 2-0 deficit. Freddie Freeman off the bench with a double, a homer, 5 RBIs in his 2 at-bats. And the Braves bullpen does its job and seals the deal in New York. Braves helped out the Nationals tonight. We'll see if Washington can take advantage. They're trailing late as well. 6-3 tonight's final. We'll recap it for you after this.